Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name's Luke, and today I am joined by Taylor Cahill. Taylor, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You have your debut MMA fight coming up for 247 Fighting Championships May 22nd, which is going to be the main focus of our interview. But before we jump into that, what other type of martial arts or combat experience do you have prior to your MMA debut?
So, kind of been messing around with mixed martial arts for a long time. It's kind of what I've always wanted to pursue. And I joke about it all the time because I often say that mixed martial arts got me into wrestling. Right? So I was a Division I wrestler for 5 years, and starting out, I knew, as a young kid, probably younger than I can even remember, that mixed martial arts is what I wanted to pursue. I was obsessed with the Militich fighting system and Matt Hughes. They're my favorite. Robbie Lawler was another favorite. So then when he moved to Coconut Creek, I was always obsessed with American Top Team, but it's just something that I've always wanted to pursue. So starting as a young kid, I wrestled for 19 years now, I think, maybe 20. I started boxing at about 15, messing around with it. Found my way into some of the best gyms in Pittsburgh. I was doing a lot of no-gi grappling at the Mat Factory before I went with Danilo at Indio Dojo. So I've been no-gi grappling, gi jiu-jitsu, boxing, USA boxing, and wrestling. And actually lately we have a third-degree black belt in Kenpo Karate come to our gym at the shop. So I've been messing around with a little bit of that too. So pretty much all facets of the sport I've covered.
Absolutely. I mean, you're one of the really great examples of what MMA did, having been around now at the UFC level for 25 years, that people started watching MMA and wanted to get into martial arts to do that. Versus, I'm going to use a name that you'll be familiar with back in the day, Randy Couture, who just announced today that it's been 10 years, which doesn't seem right. It's been 10 years since his last fight in the UFC. And I remember that last fight. But anyhow, he just was on Facebook today talking about it. But Randy and all those other guys you mentioned, Matt Hughes and all of them, started with other disciplines and then kind of put things on so they could fight in MMA. Bas Rutten obviously famously lost a bunch of submissions before he figured out what submissions were and all those type things. But out of all your wrestling, USA boxing, and all the other stuff you're doing, clearly wrestling was successful for you since you competed at the Division I level. What college was that, and kind of how did your career go there?
So I started to pursue wrestling. Sorry about that. Somebody just walked in my gym. But so I started to pursue my collegiate career at Bloomsburg University with my older brother, who was there at the time, starting 141 pounder. Things didn't pan out the way we wanted them to at Bloomsburg. So I decided to transfer to Clarion University of Pennsylvania, where I graduated from. And at the same time, my brother had transferred to the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown.
Sure.
After I graduated at Clarion, I transferred to the University of Buffalo to get my master's and wrestled under John Stutzman. So it's what it's probably about my favorite part of my collegiate wrestling career was wrestling for the UB Bulls, and kind of their mentality and the training system that we had there was kind of unmatched. It was a go in your face mentality, and I'm that kind of athlete. I like that. I kind of like that setting because I'm big into being big, strong, and fast, and then just not getting tired and just being in your face the whole time. So it was a great experience for me, and probably my best wrestling experience I've had so far. So,
well, I mean, hats off to that coach and that system, and it also shows that you've competed and wrestled and trained at 3 different colleges, 3 different universities at the Division I level, which probably is even better than just being at one system, because you got to see a lot of different systems going on. What is your master's degree? Because I heard you got your master's degree. And is that your full-time job now, or are you doing more martial arts these days?
So I went to the University of Buffalo to pursue a master's degree. Some things fell through. I didn't obtain it.
Okay.
That being said, I have a bachelor's degree in nutrition, and it is not my full-time job. I pursued that because it was another part of sports science that I could cover myself, so I could give myself a base of understanding, because this is something that I always wanted to pursue. So every act or everything I pursued in my life was for mixed martial arts. So it's a really exciting time to be able to start that. I currently just run my shop right now, which is just starting out. And then I also work for my dad's construction company right here, wearing on the chest. So SMC Construction Company. So,
Well, a shout out to SMC
oh
Construction.
yeah.
What town are they based out of? If people are in the area, they should be hitting up your dad. Is that a Pittsburgh area or outside of Pittsburgh?
Well, we're outside the Pittsburgh area. We're Somerset County. So also known as America's County. It's about an hour east of Pittsburgh.
I've been through Somerset. It's a beautiful county. Who named it America's County? Is that a thing or did you just throw that out there?
No, it's a thing. It's I think it voted America's County a few years ago. But yeah, it's a real thing. There's nothing out here but farms and just good old blue collar, hardworking people.
Well, it sounds like a great thing, and obviously it's great that your dad owns his own construction business. What took you to the Indio Dojo gym you're at currently? Indio Dojo gym you're at currently. Obviously, you've been really focused on MMA and making that what you want to do. So, what brought you to the current gym you're at now?
So when I graduated at Clarion and went to the University of Buffalo, prior to that, I was working a lot at the Mat Factory. Great group of guys. I did a lot of nogi grappling there. I worked a lot with Coach Ritchie with boxing. And when I went to UB, kind of really stepped away from all the other disciplines I had messed around with growing up and really just focused on wrestling, and was at a point in my career where I was beating just about anybody. Anybody that stepped in across from me on the mat at NCAA Division I, ranked, unranked, it didn't matter. I was going to probably beat them. I was firing on all cylinders, and it was probably the best I've ever felt in my wrestling career. And I credit a lot to my coach, John Stutzman, when I was at UB, and being there with my younger brother, Toby, who was a heavyweight, and also my training partner, Troy Keller, who was a two-time MAC champion. And I got to work a lot with U23 World Team member Muhammad McBride. So that was a great experience because every single day, when I had class issues or something conflicted with my wrestling schedule, I could just grab Muhammad and we'd go at it for 2 hours, 3 hours. So they kind of brought my level of wrestling to a different animal. And I wasn't able to kind of follow through with that. It was out of my control, it was out of my coach's control. And it's something that kind of haunts me. And at that point in my athletic career, I was kind of wanted to step away from wrestling and get something else and get a completely different feel because of the things that had happened. And I felt kind of a personal vendetta towards the sport, which I've obviously learned to forgive and forget. So when that happened and moving back home to Somerset, I kind of, I wanted a different mantra than what I had before. At the Mat Factory they were predominantly wrestlers, and not that there was any personal issues, but I just felt that I needed something different for myself and for the point in my life that I was at. I didn't want to be known as Taylor Cahill, the wrestler. I wanted to have a different identity per se. And at that time I found Indio Dojo. And I think one of my buddies that fights in Bellator right now, Dalton Rasta, he told me about it. He told me to go check it out. At the time, he said that they were the only gym in Pittsburgh that was really specialized with Muay Thai, and their MMA striking was, top of the line. So I went to Indio Dojo and signed up for the Muay Thai program, and with hopes to fight. And I sat down right before Muay Thai class and I watched a jiu-jitsu in the gi class with Danilo. And from there it was like, man, this is it. This is like wrestling, but it's different. And there, I guess the rest is history. And I didn't realize how illiterate I was to how accomplished Danilo Vellafort was and the lineage that he carries. And it's unmatched. And he's probably the best on the East Coast. And it's just a matter of time until the Indio Dojo is given the respect that they deserve.
Well, and you're right that it probably will get a lot of respect, and you will probably have a lot to do with that as you grow in your career and as you bring. I think that's what kind of happens. Gyms become popular, people get to know them when fighters do well from those gyms, and so that's what's exciting about you and making your debut here. Now, obviously, you're no stranger to really high level competition, clearly wrestling at the D1 level and a bunch, but given the fact that this is your first official non-sparring in a cage ref fight coming up May 22nd, what are your thoughts or emotions going into what will forever be your official amateur debut?
I mean, it's just what I do. It's something my family's kind of been bred with. I mean, it's the way we solved issues, me and my brothers, when we were little, is, my dad would throw boxing gloves on us and we would beat each other up. We kind of fought wherever, whenever, didn't matter. Whatever the situation was, that's how we settled things. So for me to sit back and tell you that I have crazy emotions for it, I honestly can't. I mean, yes, it is an exciting time, and obviously you have butterflies for anything, but that's just because of the work you put in. And I've dedicated so much time to this that you want the best possible scenario. So I wouldn't say that I'm overly anxious, overly excited for it. It is a business trip solely, and my job is to, leave my opponent unconscious, and that's it. And I mean, other than that, I just put too many hours in it. And at my age, I just turned 24 3 days ago.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. It's just something that I've been pursuing for so long, that to match the time and the energy that I put in at the amateur level, it's going to be hard. I mean, it's very hard. So
he's doing the right thing.
I know my head's in a good place, and I have a job to do, and that's it.
Well, clearly your mental game and your conditioning and all the work you put in. Now, you mentioned the amateur, and a lot of what comes up in the amateur world is just some amateurs kind of go slowly, maybe take one fight a year and kind of string out fights over several years, maybe without the intention of going pro or without really the intention of going quickly. Given the fact that, at least the way it looks now, COVID restrictions are being lifted, 247 Fighting Championships is super excited to be back in action since November. And I know they're already planning a fall or late summer, early fall date. Not sure if it's public knowledge yet. I think it may be. But anyhow, would you look for a quick turnaround after this fight, regardless of the outcome? Are you trying to kind of put in as many amateur fights in a year as you can? What's your game plan as far as how often you'd like to fight?
So yeah, moving forward after this fight, obviously solely right now, the only focus is making second. Everything else right now is on hold in my life. There's one track mind, and we're going out there May 22nd. And then after that, we'll sit down and reevaluate. Looking long-term, I want to fight as much as possible, as consistent as possible, and as many times as I can. If I can fight in Pittsburgh every single time, that would be a beautiful thing, because I have a lot of people, a lot of support from my home county, and a lot of people that come to my gym, and a lot of people from Danilo's gym. And it would be an amazing thing to be able to have them, in packed arena every time. So I sold a lot of tickets, and I'm excited for that. The original plan was for me and my brother Tanner, who unfortunately didn't get on this card, but will be on the next one, was to head down to Brazilian Top Team in Rio de Janeiro and work with Murillo, who is Brazil's first UFC champion ever. He's who Danilo was promoted under. So kind of a really strong connection there. And that was the plan at first, to go down there, train for 2 to 3 months, and then go right into the pro circuit. Not even mess around really with amateur, and just jump right into pro and have my first fight in Brazil. That's still going to happen. But once Ryan started training at Indio Dojo, it kind of, opened up some opportunities that we didn't have before. And it was kind of fitting. And Danilo came up to us and was like, hey man, let's take over Pittsburgh. So that's what we plan to do.
Thank you for laying that plan out there. That was a little bit more thought out, but I'm finding in just this short interview that you're a very intense, mindset driven, focused guy, which is what it takes to succeed. And I'm excited, and I'm sure fans of MMA Fancast, as well as 247 Fighting Championships, hopefully are going to be on board of this great ride of getting to watch you from your amateur debut, a pro fight coming up, probably career-wise soon into the future, and kind of seeing you develop your career, which I think is always super exciting. since you brought up pro, and I always like to educate people on the fact that in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, there are 3 rule sets of MMA. There's amateurs, which is novice and advanced, and then also pro. I'm assuming you know the amateur rule set and the novice rule set, since you'll be fighting under that in May 22nd. What do you think are the pros and cons of the novice rule set that you'll be fighting under May 22nd?
Yeah, so I mean, I haven't got the full. I guess I haven't really paid attention to the full rule set of. I don't actually know. I'm not, but I am familiar with it. I will say that. And
Sure.
from what I know from my friends fighting in it, and from just watching, if you're gonna fight an American wrestler in the novice setting, you're putting yourself at great disadvantage. I mean, and that's just the way it goes, because it's a boxing wrestling match, and that's all it is. And if you can't beat me in wrestling in the amateur novice circuit, you can't beat me in a fight, period. No questions asked. And that's why it's not, I don't want to say that I'm overconfident in any way, but I'm confident. I'm fully confident in my belief, and I know what's going to happen. And I don't think that there's too many people in the world that can beat me up in wrestling, right? And I've proven that. I've beat some of the best guys in the world, and I've trained with some of the best guys in the world. So for me to be worried about a boxing wrestling match, I'm just not worried.
Well, it's a great description of the rule set, that it's a boxing wrestling match, and you're absolutely right. I've talked to a lot of amateurs turning pro in Pennsylvania, and really amateurs favor the wrestling in Pennsylvania because there's no strikes to a ground opponent above the clavicle, punches, elbows, all that is removed. So it's very, once you get to the ground, it's either submission or wrestling. There's no real dangerous strikes on the ground. And so I like what you said there about it being a boxing wrestling match, and the confidence comes from all the training you've put in. It's been great getting to know you. Let's go through some thank yous, gratitudes, whatever you have on your mind as far as shout outs going into your debut fight here for you.
Yeah, so that's kind of an easy one. Kind of talk to these people every day. They're, my main supporters. I would say first and foremost, my mom and dad, making this everything possible, and my brothers for the unrivaled competition. Whenever you think that you're on top of the world, they're there to humble you, and it's been that way forever. And they're constantly there to, keep you honest and beat you up when you're feeling too high, because you're never as high as your highest highs, you're never as low as your lowest lows. So my immediate family has given me all the support in the world, and they're making this possible. Also, my beautiful girlfriend Megan, who I've been with for 7.5 years, unrivaled support. She's a RN, she's a NICU nurse, and she understands working hard and what it takes to kind of do something that is very critical and at a moment's notice can change. And she's given me nothing but support, so I have to thank her. Also, all of my family, my extended family. My Uncle Huff is probably the one that really got me into watching, UFC in its earliest stage when I was probably 4 or 5 years old. So, he was a key part in why we thought the way we did, me and my brothers. And then on the coaching side, I don't think that anybody is better than Cahill. I think he's the best. I think that for me and my brothers to be mentored by a guy that was an original Black Zillion and has trained with the likes of Gilbert Burns and Kamaru Usman, Rashad Evans, Anthony Rumble Johnson. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's truly an honor, and he has been there constantly for us. He has worked with us in private settings. He has given us overwhelming support and attention, and a lot of what's to come in our careers is dedicated to him. Also, I'd like to send a shout out to my coach at UB, John Stutzman. He really molded me, and I bleed blue and white after being at UB. I really do. And then the last few shout outs I'll send out are to the guys right here in the gym. Right now we got behind me rolling. We have Dave Krause, who's fighting also. He's an upcoming bout. against Justin Pippins from the Mat Factory, Hunter Tremaine, who fights Chris Hustleton, which that's going to be a very exciting, very fun one because there's a very raw amount of intensity there. It's going to be very hard to match, and he's a bad matchup for anyone. And then also got my brother back here, two-time Gold Glove champ Orlando Ellis, who's been working a lot in the shop, and then also Big Coach Nate from N8 Jiu-Jitsu, kind of working with us one-on-one for about 6 months, and he's awesome. And it's amazing to be surrounded by so many high level people that have seen the outcome of a million different competitions and scenarios, and they kind of know where to be at all times, and they know where your mind should be, where your weight should be, where your training should be, how you should tailor everything. And I can't thank them enough for all that they do. And I think that one thing that mixed martial artists really downplay, or any athlete per se, is their support. And it truly shows that you are a shell of all the great people around you. You're a shell of your support system. So when you get in there, if your team isn't doing the right things too, all the guys that you're surrounded with, your coaches aren't doing the right thing, then you're not going to do the right thing because you're carrying, what they embody. So I wouldn't be able to do this stuff without them. I really wouldn't.
Well, and continuing on the thank yous, and you're right, there has to be a level of humility and gratitude and all the best athletes, or else they stop learning. We've seen that particularly in the fight world, that some of the best athletes, whether it's boxing or MMA, they get arrogant, they stop learning from their coaches that have gotten them there, and then things go downhill. So it's a great mindset and attitude you have. I can't wait to see you make your debut and to be part of the broadcast team to do that, which is going to be super exciting to announce you for the first time in an MMA setting.
Oh, yeah.
Really looking forward to that. But thanks so much for coming on, taking time out. I hope your training goes well tonight, and best wishes to all the people in your gym that are going to be fighting. I think 247 Fighting Championships is really going to make Pittsburgh a really big center of MMA. It's been a center of MMA before. There we go. Hey, you were holding out on us the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that. Look at that. And I really do think, look at that hat. I really do think that it's going to become a center where people are going to want to come and fight for 247. You already know that 247 was the last place, and that launched Kamala Death Star Worthy to the UFC. And you mentioned Bellator, so obviously a former 247 Fighting Championship champion, John DeJesus, is now in Bellator. So even right there, two of the best organizations out there, 247 is going to continue to take people to those bigger promotions. So it's a great thing. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Can't wait to watch your debut.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You got it.